Welcome to the Resilient Butterfly Podcast. My goal is to share inspiring stories of healing and recovery through many diverse approaches and models. Our guests bring incredible lived experiences, insights, and/or professional expertise, each with their own unique path. While we highlight and celebrate these stories, our intention is to inform, inspire, and demonstrate resilience and creativity. This podcast does not endorse any one approach. We believe there is more than one way to heal, and we're here to showcase the resilience and possibilities that exist. Hi, welcome to Resilient Butterfly. I'm Pam Feinberg-Rifkin, and today, as my guest, I have Dr. Donna Marks, who I consider a friend, and
Good.
We've had some really amazing conversations, privately, and I'm sure that publicly we will have some really amazing conversation today. I will want to formally introduce you, and then we'll go into just really conversation about your life and what you've been up to for many years and what you like to be up to later in your life.
Thank you.
So Dr. Donna Marks is an educator, a licensed psychotherapist, and addictions counselor in Palm Beach, Florida. And in 1989, she earned a doctorate degree in adult education and became a certified in addictions, gestalt therapy, psychoanalysis, hypnosis, and sex therapy. That's a lot. So over the years, she has really managed to continue to gain experience as well as education, and has brought that to us as in therapy as well as in her books, in the classroom at Palm Beach State College. And the books that she's written are Learn, Grow, Forgive, A Path to Spiritual Success, Exit the Maze, One Addiction, One Cause, and One Cure, and The Healing Moment, 7 Paths That Turn Messes into Miracles. I've read 2 of her books, Exit the Maze and Learn, Grow, and Forgive. And what I found both is that you talk about the maze in both books as well as A Course in Miracles. So I'd like to start there because not everyone understands or knows about what A Course in Miracles is, and we can start there and then go backwards and then forwards again, because I think it sets a little foundation of why you're citing Course in Miracles in your books.
Okay, thank you. Well, a lot of people are just so turned off to spirituality and religion, and I like the Course in Miracles because it's not about either. It's about evolving and learning about our inner selves, and that we have 2 parts. One is the ego, and the other part is our spiritual nature. It's inherent, it's eternal, it's forever, and always will be. And one voice, the ego, is based in fear, and it always tells us to do the next wrong thing. Mm-hmm. It's loud, it's aggressive, and it's 100% right. However, our softer, more loving voice is the voice of love. If you don't like the word spirit, just say the voice of love. If you don't like the word God, just use the voice of love, because that voice is gentle and soft and always tells us the right thing to do. Sounds simple.
Right.
However, it's a matter of learning to train our minds to be still enough and quiet enough to access the softer, still, quiet, loving voice.
That's a miracle in itself,
Yes.
to quiet our minds, right?
Yes.
And for many of us, including myself. And in doing this, you talk about, well, he's so egotistical, or she is, has an ego too. And that is the epitome, maybe, of looking at what an ego is. But we don't always think of the ego as doing the wrong thing. And I'm just wondering when that ego usually takes over, and how can we get from that fear base to that loving self?
Well, thank you. I just also want to clarify the Course in Miracles was developed in the 70s it was channeled through a psychologist or psychiatrist at Columbia University. And she was actually Jewish and agnostic. So she started hearing these voices, or this voice tell her to take notes.
Right.
And the notes became A Course in Miracles. And a miracle is nothing more than a change in perception. So to answer your question more clearly, the ego is nonstop. It's always looking for how to protect, how to get. It's never anything about how to receive or how to share. It's always fear-based, whereas the miracle is always love-based. So how do we know? Well, we know because we're not at peace, which voice we're listening to. When we're agitated, when we're feeling like there's not enough money, not enough love, not enough boyfriends or girlfriends, or not enough of whatever, not enough time, we are functioning from the place of the ego. When we're functioning from the place of love, there's always enough of everything, and we learn how to cultivate more, not less.
You know, that's really, I love when you put it that way, because many times over my lifetime, I've said, I don't have enough of this, that, and the other thing. And time seems to have been the biggest thing right now, because there's so many things I'm grateful for in my life. But yes, I'm still with this, I don't have enough time. And it may be just the health situations that I've been through, aging, just seeing my grandchildren grow up so quickly, my children already in their mid-30s, almost 40. So with that, it's just like I want to enjoy and be present to it all. And I've used tools to do that, excuse me, and finding the time to do those.
Yes.
So,
yes.
What is I've read about some of the solutions, but I want you to describe some of those to the audience.
Yes. Well, we can manage our time wisely. And one of the things I tell people is we have a birth certificate, but we don't have a death certificate. So we don't know how much time we have. So every day is sacred. And you want to evaluate what are the sacred things in your day that you want to contribute your time to. So often we're spread so thin. We're trying to please this, and we're trying to please that, and we're trying to reach this deadline and that deadline. And the Course has taught me to go much slower and be much wiser and much more prosperous. As you know, I have a concierge practice, and so my hours are limited that I'm willing to contribute. But at the same time, I have a clientele that works with that system, and they get in there and they do the work, much like your practice. They get in there and they do the work, and then they are complete, and then they're free to go out and connect with other resources if they need them. So I decide, what are my priorities? Rank them according to the most important. Spirituality comes first, morning and at bedtime. Family second. And then from there, what do I need to accomplish today? And one of the things that I do that gives me a lot of free time is I do it now. I never procrastinate. Well, rarely. I can't say never. No one's never. But I rarely procrastinate, and I always have my list of what do I want to accomplish today, and I get it checked off. And then it's amazing how much time that I have left in the day.
I love that. And I'm sure that you weren't always like this.
Absolutely not.
So obviously you're human.
Yes.
And you've had some major things in your life as well. So, and that's some of our conversations have been on that. And can you share with the audience some of the struggles that you had, which brought you to and how the process potentially of where you were and how you've been able to land where you are now with that piece.
Okay. Well, that we probably don't have enough time to cover, but I'll give you the crash course.
Of course.
And it's always a process. I never want to stop learning and growing. I'm constantly in an educational mindset because there's so much to learn and so many tools available for continuous improvement. And as my book says, in Learn, Grow, Forgive, I still make mistakes. And if I don't keep practicing the tools and learning new tools, then I'm going to revert backward, and I want to keep moving forward. But I was raised in an alcoholic family with multiple addictions. There was alcohol, there was eating disorder, there was, I believe, sex and love addiction. And it was a difficult time. My stepfather was in the military, and we traveled constantly. So there was this ongoing, never ability to really have safety of roots. My roots that did exist were with my grandparents. They lived in Miami, and I was born in Miami, so I did have that. That was my safe space, but at the same time, they were dysfunctional in their own way, but that's another whole story. But I either had this highly structured, sterile type of environment with my grandparents, or this highly unstructured, neglectful and abusive environment in the other. Fortunately, I've been able to do the work that has transcended that. I don't even like talking about it anymore. It's just like something that, did it happen? Yes, it did happen.
Right. You're not a victim to any of that.
Absolutely not. In fact, those are things that I incorporate into helping other people. When I got into recovery at the age of 31, I learned that, we're not going to turn our back on it. We don't regret the past. We use it to help others. And that gives it meaning and purpose. Like any trauma that anybody goes through, they can either say, I'm a victim of this, and look what you did to me, or they can say, I can use these experiences. I probably even chose them before I got here. I believe that, to be able to help mankind. So that's my mission and purpose. I did have a lot of trauma. I did have a lot of pain. Probably most of it as an adult was self-inflicted, including getting married at the age of 16 and having a baby and being divorced at 18. And then my use of substances increased with time, mainly alcohol at that time. And I had no idea, because I was never going to be like them, that I was developing the symptoms and phases of addiction myself. So after my second divorce, I hit an emotional bottom. I never had a DUI. No one ever said I had an alcohol problem. There were never any overt consequences. And I want to make this point because there are a lot of people in the field of mental health who have addictions, but they haven't reached those levels of consequences yet that are clear. And so they stay in denial. And I think we owe it to the profession to get constitutionally honest with ourselves and to really take a hard look, and not only a hard look at ourselves, but a hard look at what is dependence on something, what is addiction. And it's not anybody's fault. It's not my fault that I became an addict and an alcoholic. It's not my fault that my parents did. It's not my fault that I was born into that. But it is my responsibility to be honest about it and to learn and grow and forgive. And that's what my first book was about.
And those are the steps. You learn, you're aware.
Yes.
And then how do you take someone into their growth so that then they can forgive?
Yes, well, I think that people have to want to grow, but sometimes there's leverage to motivate people to grow. And sometimes families do that. If you're in the field, there's always the leverage of if a therapist or a physician or an attorney, someone who's licensed, is in a particular field, then their peers or their supervisors or their therapists have a legal obligation to confront it, in fact, report it. I prefer to confront it and give people the opportunity on their own to take the initiative. So there's always some form of leverage, whether it's a family. We now have laws that family members can go to the courts if necessary. I like to see that as a last resort. I prefer an intervention, a very loving and gentle intervention. We are concerned about you. Here's all the fact-based reasons why we're concerned. And we want to see you we want you back. You've been gone, and we want you back. We miss you.
I've been listening to another podcast about raising a child, and a child is so innocent. And as they grow, as we grow as humans, there's so much that comes into our life that can be a cause of something. But I love the way you say take responsibility, because if we all don't take responsibility, then we're victims. And then we're still blaming someone else for that responsibility. And I, too, believe that we, as you said, we have created some of this to grow ourselves
Yes.
in this lifetime.
Yes.
And that there is a way that we put ourselves in those positions. I myself have done the same thing where I've had to grow because of the rock bottom that
Pain.
there's like, what, after repetition of something.
Yes.
If we're not like, OMG, there's something going on here. We
Yes.
need to break the pattern, grow, and forgive ourselves.
Absolutely.
To forgive others.
Yes. And I think growth and forgiveness go hand in hand, because if I can't give myself and other people a pass and say, this was a mistake, it's okay, it's part of, like you said, of being a human being. Mm-hmm. We're not supposed to be, like Jesus or Buddha or Gandhi.
Well, there's so many, and I grew up in a family that I felt like it was judgmental. Mm-hmm. It was a, right or wrong, black and white, mm-hmm. judgmental. And if you're growing up in that environment, then you can't disconnect from that sometimes. Right. And you then start judging yourselves, yes. and shame, yeah. all of that comes on, and then it's hard to break that. And you say there are so many people that are in the profession that have still having their own addictions, but can't come clean with it themselves. And that's their own judgment and shame. I can't be that person because I'm supposed to be another person. I can't let somebody know because my life is over.
Right. Or they're just in denial that they don't understand that addiction, like any other illness, has early stages, middle stages, and late stages. And you just described the early stages, what I call how the invisible whole is formed. Mm-hmm. It starts early on, generally, almost all the time, where a child is being told, if you don't do this, you're not enough, or because you did this, you're bad and terrible. And so that self-esteem begins to be eroded at. That's part of it. There can also be neglect. There can also be abuse. There can also be other things other than just judgments. But even in the best of families, when there's too many judgments, that feeling of something's missing in me, mm-hmm. and it's called self-love because it's been sucked out through these rules and regulations and comments and behaviors inflicted upon a child. A child, from the moment it's conceived, in my opinion, should be thought of as something to nurture and love, and then they grow up feeling this feeling of, I don't ever want to put those drugs in my body. Why would I want to do that? I don't know why you want to poison yourself with alcohol. Ew. I mean, those are the natural reactions of children who are full of creativity, full of power and strength, and they feel good about themselves. Right. And it takes a lot a lot of emotional attacks, so to speak, to cause that hole to form. But once it forms, it grows and grows and grows. And so what happens then, the moment I tried my first drink of alcohol, woo, that was full of all kinds of good, warm, fuzzy feelings, and I was on. And this shy, introverted, mm-hmm. less than little girl became, feeling like I could do anything. And that's the problem with it, is that I learned to substitute real love with fake love. Sure. The fake feeling of that high is not love. It is a substitute for love, but it is cunning, baffling, and powerful because it never stopped talking to me. It always says, come here, little girl, I will fix you. I will take it all away. I'll take the time away. I'll take the pain away. I'll take the rejection away. I'll take the failures away, and you will be fine with me. And even when I would try to quit smoking or all the other things that I did, it never worked because I always wound up with my best friend, right? That voice, the ego. Right.
So when did you start learning the Course in Miracles? And of course, you've also taught Course in Miracles. When were you first learned about that? And talk about the spirituality. One of the things that I talked about with one of my previous guests, who was actually an interventionist from Feinberg Consulting, is the drugs and alcohol is used in a spiritual way to find themselves.
Misguided search for spirituality,
right.
Yeah. Yes.
So in that respect, where did the Course in Miracles come in in your life?
Well, when I got sober, when I was 31, I wanted to pursue spirituality. I had always had a conscious contact, if you will. Even when I was 5 years old, I felt this voice trying to guide me and direct me. Of course, once I started drinking, that voice became silenced by me and by the drinking. Mm-hmm. However, I wanted to resume that. I had been on a religious quest. I had done many things to try and find that connection, and went worldwide and did find a lot of interesting things. I found that the spiritual truth resides pretty much the same message across the board, but I wanted something a little bit more than that. And I was at a coffee table with another recovering friend one night, and I said, I wish I could find some place where I could just learn how to develop my own spirituality. And she said, well, what's wrong with church and all that? And I said, well, I feel like Jesus was a great teacher, and also I had been to Kabbalah and a lot of other things, but I feel like the message got ruined. You know, he was teaching love. Mm-hmm. Love God, love yourself, love others. That's so simple. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to do that. Mm-hmm. And so she said, you sound like somebody who would really like the Course in Miracles. And I said, what's that? And she told me about it and told me where to buy the book. And I, the next day, drove and bought the book. And I've been a student ever since. Students and teachers are the same. Mm-hmm. I just facilitate. I facilitated actually at the Palm Beach Junior College, which is now Palm Beach State College. And I facilitated in the continuing education department there for a couple of years. And now I just facilitate in my home once a month.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we've talked about it, but I didn't know that you still facilitate.
Yes.
So I'll have to get that information from you. I have gone to a few Course in Miracles by someone else and have read, and my first introduction was from Marianne Williams, of course, who
she was a great teacher.
Taught and wrote books and used a lot of Course in Miracles in her life. And with that, she, like you, both of you have really created it in a more meaningful way to be able to understand it. There are times when I've gone to a class and it becomes murky because probably the ego's like getting in the way of all of that. It's like I can't quite grasp it, but I understand. I mean, when I finally realized it's either fear or love, and that is where it comes down to, that's when it really hit. Like, oh, I understand it now, because fear takes you in places, dark places that you don't want to be. Nobody really wants to be, but you end up there in many ways.
And it tells you that's where you're supposed to go. And what I say is the voice that talks you into doing it is the same exact voice that condemns you for doing what it just talked you into doing. And so once people understand that concept, they say, I don't know if I want to listen to this voice telling me to drink again or smoke again or tell that person off or get mad and leave or say, screw it. Yeah. I think I want to pause and access that other more loving voice before I make a decision here. Mm-hmm. So that's really important to keep in mind when we're talking about a course, and that there's always another way of doing it.
And the spirituality, you say in the morning and the evening, are you utilizing meditation, reading, journaling? What are some of your mechanisms to?
Well, I think meditation is extremely important, and I used to do it a lot when I first got into recovery, and now I do meditate. It's a warm, wonderful, glowy feeling, but I have that feeling almost all the time now, so I don't need to get into the state to access it. And I'm much more connected to my Holy Spirit, so I don't need to get into that state to access that voice either.
How long have you been in that state, the current state that you are in?
Mainly the past 10 years, I would say.
10 years. Wow.
It took a while to get there because I kept getting in my own way. In terms of what I read A Course in Miracles every morning. I read the Bible every morning. I read the Zohar every morning, which is Kabbalah. And I read the 24-hour recovery book from alcoholism, and then I read an Al-Anon book every morning. And at night, and I pray before, as soon as I get my feet hit the floor, I'm on my knees, I pray. And then at night, before I get into bed, I pray. And I usually read some more gentle material like Freud or the latest hot spirituality book.
Is Freud gentle?
Freud is like A Course in Miracles, and it's written to be contemplative. A Course in Miracles is intentionally written so that you don't know it. Mm-hmm. Because how many times have you read a book that was so interesting and you go, oh, this is good stuff. I can do this. I know this. And then you forget it 2 weeks later. You're not doing it anymore.
It's got to be a simple process for a follow through.
Right. So A Course in Miracles, it's written in such a way that you have to contemplate it. It tells us we're born with the information. It's just that we forget it. Mm-hmm. So this is to resurrect what we already know. But if we think we already know it, then we don't really contemplate the words that we're reading and the sentences and the context and the messages. It's repetitive. It teaches some basic concepts over and over. Choose love over fear. Choose the spiritual side of yourselves rather than the ego. I'm never upset for the reasons that I think.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of beautiful concepts in there that when we practice it enough, where we're living it on an ongoing basis, it doesn't mean I don't make mistakes. I went off on my husband the other night, but then I'm watching right away. There's the ego. There's that crazy person, and I can say it. You know, I'm sorry the ego came out and went crazy. Or I can say I got upset, but not for the reason that I think. When you do this, it triggers my past. When you seem to have your head in the sand and I'm overwhelmed, it reminds me of when I was a little girl, and I was overwhelmed at 3 or 4 years old trying to fix myself some food, and my mom was passed out because she worked as a nurse at nights, and she couldn't wake up. So. Mm-hmm. And he does the same. He says when I try to control him or something, it reminds him of his mother, who was always telling him he didn't know how to do what he could clearly do, and she was micromanaging him. So this is what relationships are about, you know, transcending our past.
And having those conversations and having an understanding on both sides of where they came from.
Yes.
Because, as you said, most of the time, it's really not, we're triggered by something else, and the other stuff comes out.
Absolutely.
In a big way.
But we don't realize it. We think that it's here and now that's causing this visceral reaction, and it never is here and now.
Right. It's from the past. If we can just be in the present moment. And I also I was listening to a podcast on the way in, and one of the things that was said was that we can feel anything that we want. We can feel and think anything we want, but acting it out is something different.
That's correct.
So being able to stop, think about it, contemplate on it, realize this is something, and grow from that is really what you're saying.
Absolutely.
So exit the maze. I'm going to switch gears. Is you have exit the maze, which is one addiction, one cause, and one solution.
Yes.
Well, this really resonated in many ways, because I see someone that all of us have one addiction or another that we could be looking at. But if we handle one and then it goes to another, what you're saying that the root of all of that is really the problem for everything that we're doing.
Yes. Well, there's over 8 billion people on the planet, and when you add up all the people who have diagnosed addictions, it's half the planet. That filters down to the children, to the workplace, and so there's also having a direct effect on those people who are just trying to be normal and live normal lives.
Right.
So everybody is affected, and this is the thing that my huge message is, that it's the number one cause of mental health and physical health problems. Mm-hmm. Sugar, alcohol, drugs, tobacco, trans fats, unhealthy habits. Those are the things that cause a breakdown in the brain, and we get dysregulated, and also a breakdown in the health. Most health conditions, even if you have a genetic predisposition, there's no gene that says you have to drink and smoke and eat sugar and gain all this weight or any of the other types of things. There's no gene that says you must gamble or that you have to be on porn, which is the number one addiction right now, 8 hours a day. So these things are all substitutes for actually feeling good about yourself. We're getting that momentary feeling good, but we pay the price. The ego says, go ahead and do it. You deserve it. You need a break. You're stressed out. Nobody cares about you. Give this to yourself. You deserve it. And then again, that same voice is the one that says, why did you do that, you idiot? You knew this was going to happen. So again, we must learn that this is our real problem on the planet, and that we must learn how to love ourselves. And that starts again in utero, where we treat the fetus like it's a sacred entity and being, and then children certainly are sacred.
And as mothers become pregnant, to have the knowledge that the fetus that is growing is really aware already to what's happening in the world around them.
Not in the way that we are aware, but definitely there is an awareness.
There is definitely, and having, I mean, everything that the mother is going through are around.
Right. The chemicals that are going through her body and while she's pregnant, have an effect. It's a lot of
alcohol. Responsibility on a woman, but it also is a responsibility on a man, because if they're in this relationship, they are as responsible for it.
Yes. Whether the couple is heterosexual or whatever sexual, it doesn't matter, that there is a lot of responsibility, and the benefit to their child is that they share those responsibilities.
So there are, I'm sure, many, many other things in Exit the Maze. You talked about how to exit the maze.
Yes. Well, before I go that, I just want to talk about one of the things that I found out through my own journey was that it's not enough to just stop drinking or drugging. That's one addiction. But guess what? That hole doesn't just seal up the minute. I have to learn how to love myself. And what happened to me is I still had codependency. I still had sex and love addiction. I was still smoking cigarettes. I was still working crazy hours and this intensity and this adrenaline rush. So I had to learn that it just kept moving around on me, like I call it whack-a-mole in the book, that we must learn how to stop, evaluate, while in treatment, or self-evaluate, what else is going on with me? Do I do sugar? Do I do gambling? Do I do porn? Do I do cigarettes? Am I snuffing? What is going on? And there's so much happening right now, and people aren't really getting the full level of recovery. Not to mention spirituality, but let's just say self-love recovery, if they're just moving around, and then they're probably highly likely to relapse like I did after 23 years because I didn't address all these other addictions. Now, I address it in the book. I think it should be standard procedure for anyone seeking help or treatment, that we need to have an Addictions Anonymous mindset.
Well, there's so much that, like in 28 days of treatment or even 90 days of treatment, there's only so far you can go, because, as you say, the spirituality is loving yourself. And there's so much there that people can hold back on in treatment because there's shame. There's a shame being in treatment. They feel like they're a loser, that they have lost everything in their life. Some people have lost many things or everything in their life. And to be able to build that up is a process. It's not. It doesn't just happen.
Well, that's why we need to let people know this isn't your fault.
Right.
It happened to you. Drugs, alcohol, nicotine, all these things are made, we're bombarded with advertisements. We're bombarded. If you want to feel better, take this, drink this, buy this, do that. And so we are not only psychologically programmed, but physically programmed that when we try something, it is made to get us hooked. I know my first cigarette, I couldn't wait to have another whole pack. I mean, anything that I ever got addicted to, it was because it gave me that hit. But it was designed to do that. I was programmed. You have to have love. You have to have this. You have to have that. And so between the genes and the hypnosis that occurs through advertising and through the effect that's intentional, we're putting such high levels of high fructose corn syrup and things now that babies are getting addicted the first time they try something. I mean, there's just, we know for sure that cigarettes have chemicals in them that made people get more addicted. They put ammonia in it to make a quicker hit to the brain. So
that I didn't know.
Yes. I have so much research on this that I went into the book, and then I do weekly blogs, and I'm constantly researching, staying up to date on the latest. Things are made to get us addicted, so it's not our fault. So we need to tell people that the minute they come through the doors. It's not your fault. It's got nothing to do with you. But you are responsible. You can do something about this.
Right.
So I think that's the first message, to help with the shame. The shame isn't on you, it's on the system that created you being addicted.
Right. Well, there's so much here. And of course, this is a process for people in their life, and patience and loving yourself through that process is something that I recognize that we all need to do. Is there something else that you can tell the audience today?
Never be afraid to love. When we got together, I said, I love this woman. And you're a new friend. We've only known each other. I've heard about you for years.
6 months, maybe? I don't know. Maybe a year at the most.
I think almost a year.
Yeah.
But you're famous, and I'd heard about you many times. But then I had lunch with you, and we had that wonderful hummus, healthy hummus.
And our lunches are going to continue
Yes.
because I love our conversations.
Yes.
I love your presence. And you certainly are a woman who has, I'm going to become really tearful here, but have learned and come through and resilient, but beautiful and loving.
Thank you so much, Pam. And you're looking in the mirror.
Thank you.
Thank you. Never be afraid to love. Keep loving.
Yes.
Love is all around all of us all of the time.
For sure.
Take off the blinders and let it in.
And we can experience that with our grandchildren. For
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yes.
Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining the conversation today. If you are seeking help for yourself or a loved one, please reach out to our Feinberg Consulting team at 248-538-5425. That's 248-538-5425, and check out our website at feinbergcare.com. I'm grateful for our guests and all who have joined us today. Make sure you follow us on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere you listen to podcasts.